No one is forced. No one forced me to be a married priest. No one forced any of the celibate priests to be celibate priests. The invitation, the calling was there from God. We respond to the invitation and the calling from God. We discern, we follow the traditions and the instructions and the guidance of the church.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Well, the fact of the matter remains that in the scriptures, which the other denominations, they like the scriptures, we love the scriptures as well. In the scriptures, as Father said, this doesn't contradict priesthood and marriage. They don't contradict each other. But I emphasize what Father Sherbil mentioned, that it's always a matter of choice. Always it's a matter of choice. If you are a monk, you are choosing the chastity and poverty and obedience from the beginning. And if you are a married man and they want to go to the priesthood, it's a matter of choice. There is still, the fact remains that there is a lot of diocesan priests that they want to stay chaste. Or not married.
Celibate.
Not married, sorry. It's not because we speak about chastity in marriage, but they choose to be celibate, and the choice is always there.
Okay, and the differences, I mean, outside of the fact that one's married and one isn't, how would you think that this affects a lifestyle? I'm going to ask Father Sharps first, because when you have a wife and you have kids, how do you possibly have time to be a priest, have all your duties at church, and then plus have your duties at home?
Yeah, look, and that's the big question that a lot of the times that will come up. And look, I'll be very real. A lot of people will come with the opposite to the people that are saying they don't. Like, I'll get a lot of young guys coming and they say, we want to be priests, but we want to be married because we get the best of both worlds. I very jokingly tell them, but also with a lot of seriousness, you also get the worst of both worlds as well. It's never just a perfect picture, you know. It's you have beauty in both vocations, and if the Lord is calling someone to be a married priest, which I believe that was my vocation, the vocation of my family, whilst it does get difficult, and I won't, sugarcoat it one bit, there are times where it's extremely difficult. Where I might go a week without seeing my wife and children, or seeing them very minimally. But the reality is God gives us the grace. Every vocation, every sacrament, we're receiving the grace to be able to fulfill that sacrament. So when God calls someone to the married priesthood, and a man is ordained as a married man, he's blessing that family with the grace to be able to handle whatever challenges come that way. So as long as the family unit is prayerful, as a family you're able to deal with any of the challenges. And as a priest, when you got to be prayerful as well to be able to handle the challenges of being a priest, the responsibilities of being a priest.
Can I just?
Yeah, or just one last point on that. Just on the practicalities of it is you need to learn to balance. Yeah. The biggest everything, like balance. Yeah, without turning this into a Karate Kid Mr. Miyagi lesson, balance is key. And without balance, everything falls apart in life, and you need to have balance as a married priest.
Obviously, as a married priest, you need to provide and support for your family.
Yeah.
A lot of people will have issues and do have issues with the fact that you can run a business and you can work for money and you can do this, that they have this idea in their mind that as a priest you must live in poverty and you can't have all these extra ordeals happening on the side.
Yeah. So a lot of that comes because there is that confusion between we all get blended together as priests. So as Father Maurice said, monks will take a vow of poverty. Diocesan priests don't take vows. We make a promise of obedience and we take a promise of simplicity. And for those that choose to not be married, they take the vow of celibacy. Obviously, we don't take the vow of celibacy as married men, but we do make the promise of obedience and we make the promise of simplicity. So whilst a priest might need to work to support their family or do those things, the work has to be work that is honourable, that is dignified. There is nothing wrong with a priest who works. Essentially St. Paul speaks about this in the scriptures as well. He says, I worked so hard not to burden any of you with my needs and the needs of those that were with me. So there's nothing, hard work is valued. It's good in that sense. But like in terms of as a priest, married, have a family and everything, I'm not going to live the flashy life where I can go, as much as I would want to go buy the $150,000 boat and go fishing every weekend or buy a mansion.
With you.
If you got the winning numbers for tomorrow's Powerball, I'll appreciate that. Thank you very much. No. Look, but the reality is we take a vow of simplicity, and as a family for married men and young men that are aspiring to be married priests, you have to recognise that your life is going to be very different to what you might have imagined when you were younger. That you're probably not going to get all the fancy material things that you probably wanted, and life will be a lot simpler, but it is a beautiful life nonetheless. As long as you have that acceptance of heart and that willingness to say, I'm sacrificing these things because they're not necessary for my salvation, God is providing for me everything that I need, then you'll be able to live the vocation well. I don't know if Abuna wants to add anything to that.
Thank you for clarifying a lot of those misconceptions as well, because that's exactly what they are, misconceptions. But moving on to a priest, the star of my Instagram page. You are a missionary. So we've delved into the life of a little bit of Father Sharps. What, on a day-to-day basis, how does your life look, the fact that you don't have the extra responsibilities of a family where you are at the church 24/7 and everything is here? On a day-to-day basis, what do you do that would be different to a priest like Father Sharps?
I would like to answer you out of a principle. The principle is that you have a vocation, you have a calling, and then you answer to it. So on a daily basis, I'm like any other priest or any other young man. I need to be young man. I'm not calling myself young. On a daily basis, there is nothing that differs if you can speak to a married man or to a single man. The difference between a married and a single man. I don't have the direct responsibility of a family, but I've got a direct responsibility to my vocation and to my order, and to my responsibility as a parish priest. So whatever my responsibility as a parish priest now in Australia, I need to be on. Now bear in mind, we've got our praise life, we've got our divine office that we need to pray daily. We have our daily mass, and we are in a big mission, so it demands a lot of presence and a lot of meetings and a lot of pastoral duties and pastoral activities. Now, if you are asking me what do I do in my private time, yes, I love my movies. I love my movies.
Table tennis.
I love beating people on table tennis, like yours faithfully. I like my movies. I like to read. But if I need to be more honest, but also as a general, yes, as Father Shab also touched base on it, that in both lives there is a lot of blessings, there is a lot of challenges. But I believe more deeply that every individual has got some kind of loneliness. So that is more relevant in a celibate priest or a celibate individual. But I can emphasize that even, I don't know, you can correct me, even as a married person, you've got even that kind of loneliness as well. Yeah. So it always goes down to try to balance it, to balance everything else. We try. I can say I'm 52 and I'm lacking into this. We all know it by theory that we need to balance everything out between prayer and work, between rest and work, between being a missionary and having your prayer life, individual relationship with our Lord, how to be with the people and how to be without the people. There's always that kind of balance. But I think every one of us needs to have that balance right.
I think it's great.
But it's more relevant to a priest, to a celibate priest, he's got more to answer to. Yeah. I've got superiors to answer to. And as an example, like the vows that we've got, they are vows of freedom. I took them freely. I by choice, by a conscious choice, I decided not to be married. Not because I look down on the married people and the sacrament of marriage, God forbid. I took the vow to give up my will through the vow of obedience. I took a vow to use money responsibly. Now, as a principle, if my behavior contradicts this, that is a personal lacking, that is a personal weakness, and that's where the people can be mixed up. You know, I have to use money. I have to use money, but it depends when I use money.
Even as a missionary, you're still... When we have to donate to the church every time we want to use something. People complain to me all the time, why do I have to put money in if I'm getting married at the church? Or why do I have to give a donation to the priest for just baptizing my child?
Yes.
You know, why do we do that? I mean, I know the answer, but...
We do that as an act of a church contribution in everything else. The church cannot run by itself. The church lives on these kind of things, and it's only fair if I pay this amount to organize a lunch afterwards or a function afterwards. It's only fair to contribute to my church because the church is like everyone else. Now, the people can complain about the amounts, about how to deal with it, yes, but as a principle, the church works on these kind of contributions.
If I might add to that, like, you know, especially when it comes to the sacraments, the church will never turn down somebody a sacrament because of money. Like, if someone well and truly is in a position where they can't afford to leave a donation, you know, I'm sure Abuna, as a parish priest, I know us, Our Lady, we will never turn down a sacrament
100%.
for someone because of a financial reason. But in saying that as well, there's two parts of this. Like, why do we leave a donation for the priest or for the church in this area? It's a sign of goodwill. Like, for us as priests, the gifts that we've received as priests, they're gifts that were given to us that we can't use for ourselves. Like, we can't baptize or confirm ourselves. We can't hear our own confessions, although that'll be a neat trick to stand in the mirror, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Like, we can't, you know, even when we celebrate Mass on our own, we're celebrating it for the community. We're praying for all the people of God. So all the gifts that we've been given that are uniquely ours as priests were given to us to be at the service of the community. So when we exercise that service for the community as an act of generosity, as an act of thanksgiving for that gift that the priest, that the God is giving through the work of the priest, leaves a donation back, sort of thing, you know.
I need to add to it. Let's say here at St. John, when we say there is this fee is for the maintenance of the church and the other fee is for the priest, I need to insist it's not for the priest to have a bottle of perfume or aftershave, or it's not this we call it butter shield, stipend. We call it the butter shield. This is our contribution as 7 missionaries here, our contribution to our order. It's like every single sacrament of marriage or baptism or a funeral or a mass, we say it's a donation for the priest. I need to clarify to everyone, it's not personal for the priest. So here at St. John, it's a separate amount of money that we collected every month, and we give it to our order. Yes. So this is our contribution to our order. So it's not for me to have it. Now again, I repeat, the principle is very clear. Now if the behavior, I mean, I take it as an excuse. I'm putting gel in my hair, but I've got the vow of poverty. As Father Shabe, I heard when he mentioned about the bishop, that I'm using a car, I'm using a room, I'm using everything, but there is nothing in my name.
Yeah.
There is nothing. That is the vow of poverty. And the vow of poverty, I live it every day by dealing responsibly with the money that I'm dealing with for myself and for the church. Yeah. So the vow is always, it's more than a promise. So he's got to save for his family. He's got to provide a future for his family and a decent house and everything. I don't have this. But I have the responsibility towards my order and towards my vow to deal responsibly with the money that I'm dealing with.
I wanted to touch base a little bit on confession, but we are running a little bit of time. But I do want to make a comment of how lucky we are as Maronites. The fact that we have a married priest and a missionary that we can go to for guidance and for counsel, especially during the sacrament of confession. I can't say how many times either a relative or a friend who's married who says, thank God I can go to Father Sharbel Dib or Father X and Father X, because they understand the issues that I might have with my wife. And on the flip side of that, thank God that we have priests like Father Maurice and Father Yusuf and these other priests that relate to these people a lot more on a personal level and that are able to guide them and counsel them, especially through the sacrament of confession. So as a Maronite, I'm going to take that as a massive blessing that we have, that we've held on to that tradition. And yes, it's a tradition through the early church that we are able to have married priests. So thank God for it. But there is a quick story I want to say, which is going to lead to the next question, right? And this came out at the time where I was asking people 4 questions for this interview. And it goes, and I hope to God you have no issue in telling the story, but I'm not going to say any names. Good friend of mine, he had a friend who lost parents within a span of 14 days, mum and dad, okay? God be with them.
God rest their souls, yeah.
Obviously it hit him very hard. About 12 months later, he sees an Instagram reel or a TikTok or however later it was of I'm just going to say a Muslim sheikh saying Mar Sharbil has performed a miracle and saved his mother. And he's saying this, and he's obviously gotten so angry because he's questioning now, why do I have to go to church? Why am I living a religious life? Why am I doing all of this where God doesn't hear my prayers? But for someone following a false religion or a different religion or whatever you want to call it, okay, God is sending Mar Sharbil to perform this miracle. And not only that, this person hasn't even converted. They're staying to their faith. So that miracle, he believes, is done in vain, firstly. And secondly, he believes that he wasn't heard. Now, there's countless stories like this. And being in a community where not everyone is religious, this is probably the thing I hear the most of why people have turned away from the church. I don't really have this as a question per se, but it is something I want to talk about. So, Father Sharbs, if you wanted to comment on something like this.
Yeah, I think it's look, it's one of those things that's definitely a difficulty. It's very hard to wrap our heads around, and it's hard to understand, And if I could, take the cop-out answer and say, it is a great mystery. Why do some prayers get answered and others don't? It's a mystery. I'm not God. I don't have all the answers. But what I truly believe is that there is never no such thing as an unanswered prayer. I don't believe God ever doesn't answer a prayer. I think everything does unfold in God's time. This is something that I learnt from actually one of the monks here who served as my spiritual director for some time, Father Ehab, who's very well loved in our community here. But he once told me this beautiful analogy. He said, sometimes, if you imagine driving up a mountain and the road wraps around the mountain, you can only see the next turn that's in front of you. So you're making all your decisions and basing all your judgments based on the feedback of what's happened behind and the next turn that's in front of you. But God sits above the mountain and he sees the big picture. He sees everything. So when we look at why prayers aren't answered, why some prayers are answered, why some prayers are not answered, we again, it sounds like a cop-out, but everything in God's time. Like we don't know that God hasn't answered that prayer. And a lot of the times the answers that God gives us to our prayers aren't necessarily what we wanted. I used this analogy in a homily a few months back. It got a few laughs. But so if God answered every one of my prayers, I wouldn't be here right now sitting here having this conversation. I would be on that boat that I $150,000 boat trolling for kingfish in the harbour or something. You'd be with me. But so look, we look at it in this sense that everything does unfold in God's time.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about prayer as a whole, for us as Christians, the most beautiful prayer is the prayer that Jesus gave us, the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father. And at the heart of the Our Father is we say, your kingdom come, your will be done. So we need to try as much as we can to be faithful to that, to allow the disposition of our heart and our mind when we pray, God, your kingdom come, your will be done. And then if we can have that disposition in our heart, it shifts the focus, yeah. Like if I, just one last thing, and then I'll ask Father Maurice to add something. If the challenge that I put forward to everyone that comes to me with this sort of thing, so shift the focus. A lot of the times when we come to pray with petitionary prayer. I want to ask God for something. But change the focus. Before you sleep every night, if you're struggling with this, I just want you to make the sign of the cross and make your prayer a prayer of thanksgiving for 3 gifts that were unique for that day. 3 gifts that were unique for that day. It could be the fact that you had something to eat, that you had a roof over your head, you had clothes, that your wife was good to you, your children got good grades in school, whatever. 3 gifts that were unique for that day. Give thanks to God for those gifts. Yeah. And do that for a month. And I guarantee you it'll shift the focus because you realize how blessed your life actually is in spite of all the hardships that we might face, and the difficulties.
That's awesome. Very well answered, Abuna. Thank you so much. And for Abuna Maurice, we do have to be quick because we only have about 5-6 minutes left on this, but I do want to pose the next question to you.
Nothing can take away the pain of that person of losing his or her parents.
Yeah.
Nothing can take away that. But at the same time, our life is, we are faithful to God. When I say I believe in God, it's not because I've got a certain condition that I believe in God. It should start by faith, and then I accept. I read somewhere, there is no unanswered prayer. There is either yes or no or not now. But there is always an answer.
Yeah.
There is always an answer. Now it's hard. It's hard why this and not this. We are not God. But if we start by I have faith in God and I want God to be in this, to accompany me with this, to give me perspective with this, to give me meaning with this, to be my strength in this, to look after those who I lost like this, that is the matter of faith. It starts first.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right, so we do have a comment from one of our videos online, which is probably, honestly, one of the most heard things I hear, okay, from especially people outside of the faith. They say they're Christian, but are definitely not Catholic. Now, this person, which makes me actually very sad, is a Maronite, based on his comment. And the comment reads as such. It says, as Maronites, we need to turn away from the Vatican and the Pope once and for all. It has corrupted our church and poisoned its teachings. We need to break free instead of following blindly. I do not know how to put this into a question because there's 1,000 ways to do it, but let's talk about it. This comment in general. Who would like to take the buck?
I remember reading in Matthew's Gospel, Jesus saying to Peter, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my Maronite church.
I heard Maronite as well.
Yeah. Look, I think that the thing that concerned me the most in that was we need to not follow blindly. Like, following blindly actually makes me giggle to myself. We don't follow blindly. In all seriousness, we follow faithfully. We follow faithfully because we go back to that promise that Jesus made to St. Peter, our first Pope, and to the church, like we mentioned earlier, that the promise that Christ made to his church, that the gates of hell will not prevail, is the reason why we should not break free or as if the Vatican is holding us back. No, we're part of the one holy Catholic Apostolic Church that received that promise from Jesus that the gates of hell will not prevail.
So instead of following blindly, we're following in faith.
Faithfully. And again, it's using that same road analogy. We're looking 5 minutes before our eyes. People will make a comment like this. Whatever the situation is that's going on in their life, I try and respect it. But we might make comments like this because, we don't like what the Pope said, or we don't like what this teaching of the church. Like, there's a disagreement based on the experience that we're having now. But we have to remember that Christ is the head of the church, and he made the promise to the church. And it's not the first time that the church has gone through hardships where it's taken time to clarify teachings and things like that. So we follow Christ, who is the shepherd, the head shepherd, and we trust his promise that the gates of hell will not prevail. And we recognize that, like our lifetime living in the church might be difficult, but it doesn't, we shouldn't jump ship just because we're facing some current difficulties. Yeah. The reality is God sees the big picture. And it's not the first time or the last time that we will have challenging times in the church.
Yeah.
My quick answer to that comment. quick answer. You are asking the impossible. My quick answer to that comment is, it's a matter of, I'm adding to Father Sherbil, we are obedient, not only faithfully, but also freely.
Yes.
Also freely. And I take back the question to the comment on to those similar. If I have a disagreement with my Pope, if I choose to stay within the Church and to be, yes, I disagree with my father, I disagree with my mother, the disagreement will always happen. I don't know if I can agree with the statement that he's corrupting the Church and we should break away. How can you break away? And what happens if we break away and we have the same problem? So we keep changing things. At the end of the day, Jesus has founded a church, and church has, as Father Sherbil was discussing, she's got the human aspect, she's got the divine aspect. The human aspect is always there. So we can't say that we are better than all of them, but I need to ask you, what would you think about me if I stand on the altar of St. John and say, the Pope is wrong and let's go against the Pope? And I mean, it doesn't work.
Are you asking me?
I'm just imagining. So it doesn't work like this.
Of course.
It doesn't. There is a structure, and yes, Catholic Church loves structure.
Yeah.
And thank God, and we've got the structure.
The whole church is built on the structure. And as much as I would love to stay and talk about this for the next hour, because I know that we can, and there are so many questions that we have missed out.
You're very unfair.
All that, blame Vera, okay? Vera is the head of Voice of Charity, and I just want to say a massive thank you to the Voice of Charity for giving us this platform to actually do something like this. This doesn't happen often. I want to thank Father Shabo Dib, Father Maurice Shidiat, for making the time to come on. I would hope, based on the response that we're getting and the amount of questions, we can do this again. I would love to. For anyone that has any questions, please reach out to me. Don't forget to add me on Instagram at, what's it called? Maronite Down Under, where I'm terrible.
That's concerning.
We do have a final question though. Try not to laugh. So lastly and most importantly, how can we humble those in our community with a big head? So
you got to give the backdrop.
obviously they're talking about people from the Karam.
I didn't know we were going to get into village wars here. So as it goes, Paul knows that I have an affinity for making jokes about the Karam al-Mahir, and just to throw a flag on the play, for those that don't know, I have my paternal grandmother, my dad's mum, is from the Karam, and a lot of my relatives and a lot of people who I love, some of my best friends are all from there. So I've grown up making jokes about them because they're my friends and my family, and we do it. And some of those jokes have unfolded in homilies.
And weddings.
And weddings. One of such, which I told Paul I'll share, is there's a story about the young lady who has a desire to live forever. So she goes all around the world, speaks to all these gurus, wanting to find a way to live forever, and no one can give her an answer. One day she sits down with a very wise Maronite priest who says to her, "Ya binti, if you want to live forever, you have to marry a Lebanese man from Karam al-Mahir." She gets all excited and says, "But will that make me live forever?" He said, "No, but your desire to live forever will go away."
You know Vanessa Farah is going to kill me, right?
Yeah, that's all right. So all the kind of people, I think my phone's already going off already about it. No. It's all fun and games.
I want to thank you once again.
Thanks,
honestly, I really do appreciate it, Father Maurice. It isn't easy, obviously, jumping on here. It was a lot easier for me. I'm just asking the questions. I'm not answering anything. I want to once again thank the Voice of Charity. I want to do a special shout out to the Contrite Maronite and Maronite Youth on Instagram for resharing this, as well as St. Afka, St. John the Beloved, Our Lady, Father Shabo. We hope we will be able to do this again. Thank you very much to the Voice of Charity, to Vera, to Rochelle, to Nat, everyone behind the scenes. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all very much, and we will have to say goodnight and wrap this up. So God bless, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. God bless.
انت عظيم انت قدير انت اله الانتصارات انت البركات انتصارات. انت البركة وانت الخير، والحب اللي مالينا ثبات. ربي أغني وأرنم ليك، وبصوت الحمد بعليك. قلبي يفضل ماسك بيك مهما تكون الصعوبات. ربي أغني وأرنم ليك، وبصوت الحمد بعليك. قلبي يفضل ماسك بيك مهما تكون الصعوبات. انت عظيم، انت قدير، انت إله الانتصارات. انت البركة وانت الخير، والحب اللي مالينا ثبات. انت عظيم، انت قدير، انت إله الانتصارات. انت البركة وانت الخير، والحب اللي مالينا ثبات. وقت الشدة بتبقى معين، وبتفضل ويانا أمين، وتعوضنا عن السنين اللي أكلها الجراد. وقت الشدة بتبقى معين، وبتفضل